By phone is NBC's chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell. Also with us is the former chief of staff at the CIA and the Department of Defense, Jeremy Bash. Andrea, can we just start with you? The Red Cross has been just critical in the efforts that we're going to see over the next couple, has been in the efforts leading up to, in terms of understanding how the state of the hostages, they have been allowed access into see them. This is how we know that there are people that are actually alive. What can you tell us about how, what we're going to see choreographed over the next just minutes, frankly, and then in the days and weeks to come?
Simone, it's going to be on and off and very difficult to assess, as it was overnight when there was a brief halt in all this around 1 a.m. Eastern time. One thing we do know is that these 3 women are being released, 3 Israeli women, because officials in both countries and the negotiators have said they are in very bad shape. So the good news is that they're coming out. The bad news, and what is going to become apparent to Israelis, to their families, is that they have suffered grievously. We've been told by officials that they have been attacked in every possible way. That is why they are the 3 first to be released. And that is the sequence that we're going to see. The injured, the last to be released will be healthy military, especially healthy military Americans. And that is unfortunate for some of the American families as well. The American families, the hostage families in general, have been very supportive, although distressed. Ruby Chen in particular, and some of the others have been really supportive of their colleagues. They're a big family, these hostage families, all of them together, especially the Americans who have bonded as well as the Israelis. But they realize that they are not going to get their hostages, their family members, their sons and daughters back. In this case, all sons. There are no American women still held. They're not going to get them back alive or dead, equally important to them, until later in this whole process. And the process, the second phase of which doesn't start till 6 weeks from now, hasn't even begun to be negotiated. So it's very perilous. I should also point out the Red Cross, to your initial question, has been critical. And one of the things that's been horrific for everyone involved in this on the Israeli side and international hostages as well, is that the Red Cross was not involved as is required under international law. They were not permitted to see the hostages, to assess their condition from day one. That is what is supposed to be done under international rules of law, rules of war, I should say, and that has not been done. So we don't know very much about the condition of some of the other hostages. The Americans are not to be released. 2 American men, one Keith Siegel, who's 65 years old, the other is Sahi Dessel Ken, until several weeks into this process. It's a 6-week process. And one of the critical things that has happened also, which is really unprecedented, is that a big push to get this done came from Donald Trump, from his posts on social media, from what he said in the radio program just the last few days, from what he said most memorably on Tuesday, a week ago, Tuesday, or 2 weeks ago, this coming Tuesday, in a news conference, and dispatching Steve Witkoff, his potential U.S. media Middle East negotiator, his envoy, but already taking that role, dispatching him, going to Jerusalem last weekend, and was basically laying the hammer down in some very tough conversations, telling Netanyahu that he had to expect that Donald Trump wanted this to happen before the inaugural, and now it is. Apparently, with every minute we wait to see with bated breath whether this transfer actually takes place, but we understand from Danielle that the 35 prisoners from the West Bank are beginning to be released, and that was one of the last details that had to be worked out. What were their names? What had they done? Where would they be going? Would they be allowed to stay in the West Bank? Would they be told to export to other countries, exile to other countries? And whether or not the 3 women would get out. Simone?
Andrea Mitchell.
Andrea Mitchell.
The Queen. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you very much, Andrea. We've got Jeremy Bash here with us, and it's very interesting. One of the points that Andrea made, Jeremy, about Donald Trump sending his envoy. Here's a private citizen sending an envoy. Yes, president-elect and all of that, but this deal is something that has been worked by the Biden administration for quite some time. In fact, let's listen to John Kirby explaining how this ceasefire deal got together in the first place.
This is the deal that the president put on the table back in May, was endorsed by the international community, and time again, Hamas just kept throwing up obstacles and wasn't willing to negotiate in good faith. What changed was they're weaker now. They're more isolated now. They're in more trouble, and so they were willing to make a deal.
Speak to that aspect of this, that this was a process that requires a lot of pieces to come together, but a central part of that is the weakening of Hamas along the way. And it's not just the hot rhetoric of, there will be hell to pay if you don't do what we say. You still have to put in place the building blocks of a deal in order for it to hold. And to Andrea's point, in order for that process to unfold over what will take likely 6 weeks, 8 weeks or more.
Well, the Israeli Defense Forces, Michael, decimated Hamas's leadership, and they took out Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas. And from that perspective, Hamas has been badly damaged, debilitated, and they don't have a command and control system. They also lost a major ally in Hezbollah, the terrorist army that lives on Israel's northern border inside Lebanon. That's one of the key proxies for Iran. In addition, after Iran attacked Israel with ballistic missiles, drones, and cruise missiles back in April and then again in October, the United States, Israel, and a coalition of countries took out those missiles, and then Israel conducted operations inside Iran, deep inside Iran, taking out not only Iran's air defenses, but their ballistic missile production capability. So Iran was left without Hezbollah, without their ballistic missiles, without their air defenses, and then the regime in Syria, the Assad regime, which had long been an ally of Tehran, collapsed. And so you've got the remnants of Hamas badly weakened without regional allies, and they had to make a deal. This all happened, Michael, really over the last few months since the fall, since Israel went on the offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So, again, I'm happy to give credit to any group of people. The reality is that we can't celebrate, we can't rejoice, we can't take credit until all of the hostages are home. And as Andrea was describing, the Americans are not coming home today. There are 7 Americans in captivity. We should talk about them. They won't be coming home today.
Can I just note again, news is happening in real time. President Biden is in South Carolina today. He had no publicly scheduled events on his schedule. But now the president is going to deliver remarks on the ceasefire and hostage deal at 10:30 a.m. Eastern from Charleston, South Carolina. And MSNBC will bring those to folks when we have that. But the president now going to speak on, again, what is a historic day, but still very much in flux.
Jeremy, as you were speaking, we were watching images from Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. Obviously, this is an incredibly emotional day, not only for the families of these hostages, but for nation states that have watched and waited for their own people to be returned. Talk to me about the American hostages that are yet to be released, especially given that we know that phase 1 of this deal was the most solid. Phase 2, phase 3, that is where things become more dicey.
Well, let's go over the story of the American hostages. 12 American hostages were taken on October 7th. 45 Americans, by the way, were killed on October 7th. This was an attack against the United States as much as it was an attack against all nations of the world and Israel. So 12 were taken. Early on, 2 American women were released, and then Aviva Siegel was released. She's the wife of current hostage Keith Siegel. And then baby girl Abigail Moridan, the 4-year-old young toddler, was released, and she's the one that President Biden welcomed to the Oval Office. So that left 8 American hostages. On September 1st of last year, Hersh Goldberg Poland was murdered at point-blank range by Hamas terrorists. He was the one, 23 years old, taken from the music festival. His parents, John and Rachel, known to the world because of their amazing advocacy and their advocacy for all hostages. And so that left 7 hostages. We subsequently learned that several of them had been killed on October 7th. Omar Nutra, Itai Chen, and Gadi and Judy Haggai. And so there are 3 living American hostages, and you just showed them. Keith Siegel, 65 years old, Sagi Dek El-Chen, 36 years old, a father of 3 from Kibbutz Nir Oz, and Idan Alexander, a military-age male. Now, Keith Siegel and Sagi Dek El-Chen will likely be released in the first group of 33 over the coming 42-day period. We don't yet know the fate of Idan Alexander. The American Idan Alexander has not been listed in the first tranche because he's a military-age male. And so we have to press continuously against Hamas to fulfill their agreements here and ensure that this deal happens so that all Americans can be reunited with their family.
Can I follow up on that point? You referenced what happens in the next phases of this is a very difficult challenge. What happens if that breaks down? Where does that leave this process? And certainly, where does that leave the remaining hostages?
Well, your point, Michael, is exactly right, which is this is incredibly fragile. And at any moment, this process could break down. And that's what happened back last November when some Americans came out, some hostages came out, and others were left behind. This deal was put on the table 8 months ago. President Biden put this out there in May. It could have been signed. The documents that they signed in Doha this week were dated back from last spring and last summer. And so if you talk to, for example, the parents of Hirsch Goldberg Poland, as I have, and as I know you have, what they note is that Hirsch is the only American who we could have saved with this deal, who we did not. We left him behind. We failed him. And we can't fail the others. This is an absolutely critical moment. It's very fragile. And the Trump administration, which is going to take office here tomorrow, is going to be responsible for pressing this deal forward. No spiking the football, no declaring mission accomplished until all the hostages are home.
All right, Jeremy Bash, thank you so much for being at the table this morning. Really appreciate it.